dimly lit street bustled with life as Tunde wiped the counter of his modest bar, the chatter of patrons blending into a low hum. This was his realm, every scratch on the wood a testament to long nights and dreams deferred. But tonight the air felt thick, charged with lingering bitterness that clung to Tunde like sweat. A familiar laugh sliced through the noise. He looked up sharply, his heart skipping a beat. It was her, Laura. She was walking in, as striking as ever, with her fiancé Kola, who was well known in the local business circle. Tunde's jaw tightened as old memories surfaced. "Ah, Tunde," Kola greeted, his voice loud and casual. "I didn't know this was your spot. Laura and I just wanted a quick drink." Tunde forced a smile. "Welcome, Kola. What can I get you?" Laura glanced around the bar. "It's, quaint. I didn't expect you still to be here, Tunde. Still tending the bar, I see." The words were a knife wrapped in silk. They shredded his pride, but Tunde nodded, refusing to let it show. "Yes, I've stayed in my lane. How's, life treating you these days?" "Oh," Laura waved her hand, diamonds winking in the low light. "Busy with wedding plans. Kola's business is booming, you know." Tunde nodded, holding her gaze for a moment too long. "Good to hear. I'm happy for you both." Laura's laugh was soft, almost kind. "Well, not everyone's cut out for business, right?" Kola leaned in, unaware of the tension. "Do you have a job vacancy? Laura says you're quite reliable," he said, turning to Tunde. Tunde's hand slipped, glasses clinking together violently as he struggled to maintain composure. Laura bit her lip, a mix of emotions flickering across her face. "I'm sure I can find something for you, Kola," Tunde murmured, wiping his hands on a rag. "Why not bring your resume tomorrow?" Kola beamed, oblivious. Laura's eyes lingered on Tunde's face, searching for something. He met her gaze evenly, and she quickly looked away. The next morning, Tunde stood before the mirror in his cramped apartment, the day-old stubble on his chin doing nothing to disguise the weariness in his eyes. His phone vibrated on the nightstand. A message from an unknown number flashed across the screen. "We need to talk. Laura." The text felt like a summons. He could ignore it, pretend it didn't matter, yet emotions welling up inside him compelled him to see it through. He pocketed his phone and left for the bar, thoughts swirling. Laura arrived mid-afternoon, every step calculated as she walked toward the bar. "So what's this about, Laura?" Tunde leaned back against the counter, arms folded. "Are you really going to offer Kola a job?" she asked quietly, her voice lacking the confidence from the night before. Tunde shrugged. "Why not? He's your fiancé, isn't he?" She hesitated, fiddling with a napkin. "Look, I didn't come here to fight. I guess I just didn't expect to see you like this." "The same way you didn't expect me to be more than a bartender?" Laura sighed, frustration lining her features. "That's not fair, Tunde. We broke up because we wanted different things." "You wanted different things, Laura," he corrected her, choosing his words carefully. "I wanted a life with you, remember?" She dropped her gaze, silence stretching between them. "I did what I thought was best." "I know," Tunde said, his voice softening despite himself. "But it doesn't mean it hurt any less." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Tunde stood outside the bar, the evening air cool against his skin. A text from Kola pinged his phone. "On my way with the resume." Tunde stared at the message, old anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. Laura had been his world once, and her decision had burned through him like acid. This was Kola, asking him for help. The irony wasn't lost on him. When Kola arrived, Tunde watched him navigate through the crowd with ease. There was a confidence in his stride that Tunde couldn't help but admire, yet resent in equal measure. "Thanks for meeting me, Tunde," Kola said, handing over an envelope with his credentials. "Would mean a lot to Laura if this works out." Tunde took the envelope, nodding. "I'll see what I can do," he said, knowing it was a lie. But he had a plan, one that twisted his insides and made him question his own motives. Later that night, Tunde sat alone under the bar's dim lights, his decision solidifying as he sifted through Kola's resume. The man was indeed impressive. Ivy League education, multiple businesses. But what Kola didn't have was loyalty, the kind Tunde had shown Laura once upon a time. His mind raced with fleshed-out scenarios. how he'd stall Kola, make promises he couldn't keep, watch him return to Lara with uncertainty in his eyes. Tunde's heart beat with the rhythm of his plan, a quiet vindication in knowing he could sway the future of those who once doubted him. The thought alone was enough to stir a semblance of power, a chance to rewrite the narrative Lara had set for him. But it wasn't just about them. It wasn't just about power or revenge anymore. It was about justice, fairness, and the scales that had tipped for too long in another's favor. The following day, Tunde met with his friend, Jia, a fellow businessman. "You're playing with fire, you know," Jeed warned, pulling at his collar in the stifling heat. "I know," Tunde replied, his confidence unwavering now. "But it's time I took control of my own story." Jeed frowned. "Remember, revenge doesn't always pay the way you think it will." "Maybe," Tunde smiled a little sadly, "but I can't stand by and let life just happen to me, either." That night, Lara sent him a message. "Did you speak with Kola?" He hesitated before typing back. "I'll make sure he gets what he deserves." She replied instantly. "Thank you, Tunde. I really hope this brings peace between us." Peace. The word was bitter on Tunde's tongue. At the bar, his heart felt like lead. Revenge was a cold flame, but one that burned with a quiet resolve. He imagined Kola, stuck in limbo, and Lara watching as everything she'd chosen crumbled slowly, piece by piece. He thought about what Jeed said, and about the alternative, acceptance, letting go. But the prospect alone tightened his chest, the objective too far out of reach. As Tunde cleaned the bar for the night, his opportunity for revenge lay within reach. He could feel it, that crossroad of justice and vengeance. But as he polished the counter one last time, doubt crept in, weaving between memories and what he knew was right. He wanted closure more than anything. Yet here he was, a hair's breadth away from throwing it all in for temporary satisfaction. For a moment he considered telling them both the truth, walking away from the plan, accepting his life as it stood. But then, as the bar lights dimmed, his phone buzzed again. Another text from Lara. "We're counting on you, Tunde. Make us proud." He shut his eyes tight against the sudden onslaught of emotion. Emerging from that darkness, though, was a simmering clarity, fueled by everything he'd endured. He scribbled a note for Jeed with shaking hands, sealing his commitment. Now, he was ready. And just like that, Tunde's choice set the stage for an unexpected reckoning, a showdown that would test loyalties, truths, and the tangled web of debts both paid and owed. What lay beyond this threshold was the unknown, a narrative yet to be written, but one that promised to reveal the tangled heartstrings of ambition, betrayal, and the enduring quest for dignity. As dusk settled over the city, Tunde locked up the bar with a steely sense of purpose. Each step home was heavy with intent, the streets eerily quiet. His mind replayed Lara's text, "Make us proud," over and over. A part of him itched to follow through with revenge, imagining Kola's perfect facade crumbling. Returning to his apartment, Tunde found himself pacing. His thoughts twisted with Kola's unknowing trust and Lara's haunting presence in his life. It was a moment that demanded a choice, and his resolve both thrilled and terrified him. The next morning was like any other, Lagos bustling under a humid sky. Tunde went through the motions at the bar, time ticking by agonizingly slowly. He watched patrons come and go until his eyes landed on Jide at the entrance, waving urgently. "Tunde!" Jide's voice was breathless, as if he had been running. "You have to see this. It's about Kola." Tunde frowned, his insides nodding with foreboding. "What's going on?" The answer spilled out, stark and startling. Kola's business was under investigation. Rumors flew about embezzlement, and Lara's father was caught in the crossfire. Tinges of shock and disbelief coursed through Tunde. This wasn't part of his plan, except maybe it was. Only life had taken over where he had paused. Later that evening, Lara stood hesitantly near the bar, her face a blend of worry and hope. Tunde approached cautiously, his previous confidence shaken. "Tunde," she exhaled, almost in relief. "I don't know who else to turn to. Kola's in a mess and I need your help." The tables had turned dramatically. Where once Tunde had envisioned revenge, He now faced a plea for rescue. "You expect me to help after everything?" Tunde's voice was rough, his heart wavering at the sight of Lara distressed. "I didn't think it would come to this," Lara admitted, her eyes beseeching. "Please, Tunde, we need someone we can trust." Jide met with Tunde in the back of the bar, tension thick in the air. The two friends exchanged hard looks, Jide's gaze reflecting concern, masked with caution. "Tunde, this might not be your doing, but it dropped in your lap for a reason," Jide advised. "Careful how you play this." Tunde nodded, the weight of the situation heavy upon him. It was a crossroad of unexpected dimensions, where revenge and reconciliation blurred into one. The crowd in his bar hummed with life, unaware of Tunde's internal conflict. As he served drinks, his family's proverbs whispered in his memory, "Biiku ile obapani, tode olepani." If the home is not at peace, the outside cannot harm us. But what if he could help restore peace? But how? Before leaving the bar that night, Tunde found an old Bible his mother had once given him, tucked beneath old receipts. Its cover was worn, the pages marked by time. He wasn't sure why he hadn't discarded it over the years. Sentimentality? Or a subconscious need? He fumbled through the pages, stopping on Matthew 5:44. "But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." The words hit harder than any retribution. His breath caught. Was this what was missing from his plan all along? Tunde went to visit Lara's parents unannounced. Her mother received him with a mixture of relief and strain. The turmoil clearly weighed on them all. "We're at the end of our ropes here, Tunde. Adura, Nimoen Gabadura." "I am just praying for a miracle," her mother admitted, tears welling in her eyes. "Maybe," Tunde began slowly, "maybe it's time to focus on what matters, the truth." He offered them Cola's resume, pointing to the areas of expertise. "Use this. Show them he worked hard. They can't take away his integrity, even if there are flaws." Later, returning to the bar, Tunde met Kola. The usually composed fiancé looked burdened, his charm dulled by the burden of uncertainty. "I thought I was doing everything right, Tunde." Kola's confession was raw. "But instead, I might lose Lara." Tunde, surprising even himself, laid a comforting hand on Kola's shoulder. "Maybe I was wrong to judge you so harshly, Kola. We all need a second chance." That night, Tunde huddled in a corner of his bar, reflecting on his choices. The groundwork of his revenge was there, exploding without his push. He never imagined he'd be, in part, responsible for Kola's redemption rather than his downfall, but this was the sound of grace, foreign yet undeniable. Lara stopped by quietly in the evening. "I heard what you did," she said, her voice small. "Kola's been different, grateful and more humble." Tunde fixed her with a steady gaze. "Sometimes it's what we're put through that teaches us more than anything else." Her hand reached out instinctively, covering his. "Thank you. I mean it, Tunde. For everything." Days later, Tunde stood outside the bar with Jide. "You came out better with this, don't you think?" his friend asked, eyeing their surroundings. Tunde shrugged, but the burden had lifted a little. Revenge had splintered into irrelevance, and against all attempts to hold on, he'd walked through to another side. On Sunday morning, Tunde found himself back at the local church, his mother's Bible in hand. The pews were filled with soft-spoken hope and people in quiet conversation with God. He sat through the service, no longer on the outside looking in. As the choir sang, he thought of how he had been spared the shackles of bitterness. He slowly began to understand that perhaps, in some small way, faith was the revenge he never anticipated, the only real path to peace. After the service, Tunde spotted a shadow lingering by the doorway. Kola, looking awkward in his Sunday best. There was no need for words. A simple nod passed between them, loaded with understanding, gratitude, and maybe even a distant promise of friendship. Weeks later, Tunde was tending his bar with renewed energy. The weight of past grievances bore less heavily on his shoulders. His phone buzzed with another message, but this time, he greeted it with a smile. "We owe you, Tunde. Always grateful. God bless you." From Lara and Kola. From then, Tunde found purpose in the everyday, where old wounds no longer dictated new chapters. The road was no less challenging, but it was clearer. With each glass he polished, Each laugh he shared, Tunde embraced the kind of resilience only God could offer. On the bar counter, alongside the day's earnings, sat his mother's Bible, open to Matthew 5 and 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Tunde smiled to himself. This was his story. No longer just a quest for justice, but unexpectedly rewritten by discerning peace and the grace of God, scars and all.
Thank you so much for listening to this intriguing story. I hope it touched you or taught you something. For more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. And guys, if you'd like to see a part 2, or you have thoughts on what happened, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.